Thomas the Hitman Williams, original West Coast gangster, meeting the East Coast. What's going on, brother? It's great to
Yeah,
meet you, man.
great to meet you too, man. I've the West Coast gangster, man. You take me all the way back to like middle school when thought I was Tupac throwing up West Side until I really met my first bully who was really about that gangbanging life. And he chased me home every single day from the time seventh grade started to all the way to like the middle of my seventh grade year. So I was like, yeah, West Coast. I was like, ooh, no, that's a trigger. That's bringing up some old stuff, man.
Oh
But I
man, I'm
appreciate you
sorry.
having me on, man. No, it's all good. It's all good, man. Thank you for having me on, man.
Absolutely, man. It's first of all, I just want to mention it's an absolute honor that someone of your stature and the way that you've gone about your life would consider coming on the show, man. It's really, it blew me away when you first reached out and contacted me, and we kind of started emailing back and forth, and I started digging into some of your credentials and some of your past and stuff. Two-time national champ, several years in the NFL, have like a laundry list of amazing things that you've done in your life. So I just, first off, before you even get going, man, I just wanted to say thank you very much for spending some time with me.
No, absolutely. Thank you for saying that. I think it's the athlete mentality of like, what's done is kind of in the past. And so we're always moving forward. So you acknowledging that, it means a lot to me, man. So thank you.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So first thing I want to do is my audience is a lot of, I would say East Coast, Florida, Tampa. If you could give them a little bit of a background about, where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I know you're originally a Northern California guy, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. NorCal.
Okay.
So yeah, I grew up in Northern California. My parents got divorced when I was like 3 or 4 years old. So we moved from Georgia, from the South, because my dad is originally from the South, like South Carolina, North Carolina border. I was born in Kansas, lived in Georgia, bounced around with the military thing with my parents. They got divorced. Moved with my mom to live with my grandparents from like 4 years old until about first grade. Then I moved to live with my dad for a year and found out that even though I wanted to live with my dad, that probably wasn't the best route for me. So I ended up moving from Fayetteville, North Carolina, back to California, and went through elementary school all the way through high school. Graduated from Vacaville High School, earned a scholarship, played at USC. Was like a lot of highly touted recruits, where you go in, you're 4 or 5 stars, you're the man, they recruit you and say, we want you. You arrive on campus and you're like, I'm finally here, baby. And they go, great, recruiting's over. What have you done for us lately? And you're like, what do you mean lately? I haven't done anything. I mean, and a really funny story is the first day we show up at USC, we're getting ready to do like the first official workouts. And so, you don't sleep the night before. And so I go from my host house to the facility and I walk in and I'm thinking like, okay, they recruited me. I had sweet helmets in my locker. I had the gloves, the cleats, I had the jerseys, I had everything, right? Like a lot of us experience. And I show up and all of a sudden I see a folded gray shirt, some folded gray shorts, some like hand me down second, third generation shoes, and some busted socks with holes in them. And I was thinking to myself, um, Mr. Equipment Man, I think you guys put somebody's stuff in my locker. And they're like, well, bring us the clothes. And what are the stuff you're talking about? And I showed them. They said, no, that's yours. And I was like, no, no, no. It doesn't say USC on it. It doesn't have number 41. Doesn't have any cool like fight on slogans. They're like, yeah, USC, we don't give things away here. You got to earn them. And that told me like at the very beginning, it was like the night before the coach, Steve Sarkisian, shout out, new head coach at the University of Texas right now. He was
Hey,
like, how was
hey.
your flight? And I was like, it was great. He goes, good. It's time to get to work. Recruiting's over. So that was that day. The next day, all of a sudden, like you hand me these hand me down clothes and you say, go out there and like perform to try to earn your stuff. So fast forward, man, 4 years, 10 starts later, I get drafted 155th pick overall. And yeah, I did say that 10 starts in 4 years. So for, the listeners out there who maybe you're still trying and you think that, it's not for you because of your status or your stature or whatever. Hey, man, you can get there. Trust me, I did. 10 starts later, get drafted 155th overall to Jacksonville. So Duval County, stand up, 904.
Hey, hey.
So after that, man, I a cup of coffee pretty much everywhere I went. So I played for 5 years. Jacksonville was the first place. Played there for a little bit over a year. From there, went to New England, same thing. From there, went to Buffalo and literally had a cup of coffee and a donut for like 8 weeks. And then from there, went to Carolina, had a career-ending neck injury in 2011, October 30th, 2011 to be specific. And from there, man, the doctors were like, "Do you want to play football for a couple more years? Because I was already in my fifth year, or do you want to walk for the rest of your life?" And so I think I projected and forecasted into the future of like, I want to be able to play with my future kids. Like, I want to be able to throw them up in the air and grab them. I want to be able to, run and try and chase down my kids and say, what, until you can be faster than dad, you can't have ice cream type thing. You know what I'm saying? So,
Hmm.
man, it's been a roller coaster of a ride. I feel like I'm just getting started in my entrepreneurial ventures, even though I've been doing what I do since 2012. But man, the year of 2021 and just being super excited, man. So hopefully we caught up all the listeners, man, and we can dive in and help some people out.
Absolutely. Okay. So, first question I got is, when did you first fall in love with the game of football?
Man, I fell in love with the game of football. Um, Well, I didn't even fall in love first. I think I fell out of love with football because we were playing at my buddy Grant Marino's house, who lived next around the corner, and so I have a scar above my lip right here, and also my first tooth over here is fake. And so we're 8 years old. I catch an interception, and I'm running back, and I don't know. I thought I was Deion Sanders representing Northern California, prime time, high stepping, kicking the legs up in the air, and all of a sudden somebody came and slid tackled me like in soccer. So I thought I was going to run him over, but I had my momentum and my weight too far forward. So I'm tumbling up head over heels and I smack my face right there, man, right there in my front tooth on the concrete. And so I remember running home like no tooth, my tooth coming through my lip. And I was like, I hate football. I'm never going to play again. So that was at 8 years old, man. And so I really didn't fall in love with it until I got to ninth grade, where a high school coach of mine kind of hounded me down all summer saying, "Hey, we haven't seen you at any of the workouts this summer. We haven't seen you at any of the lifting. We haven't seen you at any of the activities. Do you plan to play football?" And I was like, "No, coach, I want to play baseball and I don't want to get hurt for baseball playing your stupid sport, football. So I'm just going to keep on this path." Jeff, when I tell you, man, I had this experience in Tulsa, Oklahoma, playing in a AAU national championship tournament. All these teams from around the country. We met up in Oklahoma, and this was like in like the round of 8 in the country at 14 and under. And I'm on second base after I hit a double, and the guy after me, he hit the ball to right field, and I come around third base, and my third base coach has his hands up, like, "Stop, stop, stop." And I'm like, "No, I'm scoring. Screw this, dude. You guys are gonna high five me here in a
Just the
second."
speed.
Trust the speed, baby. Hey, my momentum was carrying me so far forward, I couldn't even stop, that I was just running. And all of a sudden, the catcher catches the ball and he, turned to me. And in my mind, I wanted to slide, but my body just said, "Lower your shoulder and run him over." And I did it. And I know everybody's thinking that I'm going to say that I ran him over and he dropped the ball, but he didn't. He held onto the ball. They called me out. And I just remember at that moment, my body was so excited about physical contact. It was almost like my
Ooh.
body started screaming, like, here we finally are. Like, where have we been our whole entire life? And so I get back to California and I'm doing laundry in the garage with my mom. And she says, "Thomas, now that baseball's over, what are you going to do? You got 2 weeks until time school starts." And I was like, "Man, I'm going to play these video games. I'm going to catch up on sleep. I'm going to hang out. I got 14 days left." She's like, "I got a better idea. You can either get a job or you can play football." And I was like, "I'm going to call the football coach." So that's how I got kind of forced into playing freshman football, and then played JV at the end of the year and varsity the next 3 years. But yeah, man, football at that time became kind of like my true love. Baseball became my side hustle, so to speak. And so that's how I fell in love with it. And you and I were talking a little bit off air, and like for me, football represented what I needed from a father. And so my dad wasn't
Mm.
in my life early on, and we have a tremendous relationship now. We were talking earlier today about all the teams that he told me were going to win have obviously lost in the playoffs. So anybody, like, I'm literally going to bet on the teams that my dad is telling me who are going to win. It's crazy. But early on in childhood, like, my dad wasn't there. We didn't have the same kind of relationship we have now. So football provided that for me. It gave me the discipline. It gave me the encouragement. It gave me the affirmation that young males need. And so every single time, like, people thought I was just working so hard. They're like, "Man, you're always at the practice field. You're always in the weight room." And they thought I was just trying to get quote unquote better. but I wanted to be around a male, positive male figure that was going to tell me like the great things I could accomplish. I wanted them to say, man, you just put 5 pounds on the squat rack, like good, great job, clapping me up, really giving me affirmation. And two, like, you mean to tell me I used to get kicked out of elementary school for fighting and being aggressive on the playground, but you're now telling me you're gonna like standing ovations and you're gonna tap me on the helmet and tell me good job? Oh, sign me up. Let's do
Mm.
this. And so that's pretty much how I fell in love with it, man.
Did you start off playing linebacker, or were you playing a lot of different positions in high school, like most five-star athletes are doing?
Yeah, I know, right? So for me, I wanted to play. I grew up watching Ken Norton Jr., who actually coached me at USC
Hmm.
and now is the defensive coordinator with Seattle Seahawks. And so I grew up watching him. So I always liked the way that, like, when he would catch an interception and he'd run it back to the house and he'd start hitting the goalpost like it was a punching bag. And so my dad was a boxer as well. So, like, I kind of just obviously naturally gravitated towards that. So I always wanted to play linebacker. And then on offense, we ran the wing T. So I played halfback, but even though it was like the blocking back. So I was
Hmm.
like the tailback, but I was the blocker. So I was always dominant. And in my senior year, they tried to put me down in the trenches where you played at tight end. And I was like, man, wait a minute. There's too many people trying to come hit me. I'm good. So don't give me the ball. Don't try to have me block this big old nasty defensive end or even block all the way down and get a defensive tackle in there. No, sirree. I don't want any of that smoke. So yeah, man, primarily it was kind of like the running back slash fullback, and then linebacker was always my thing.
Did you have any other interests growing up, but outside of sports, outside of baseball, or outside of football?
No, sports was my solace, man. That was it. It was like
Same.
every single, you get it, right? Like every single parent teacher conference, it was like Thomas is really good at recess, he's great at lunch. And so like for me, that's all it was. I couldn't wait for recess in school and I couldn't wait to play after school with my friends, in the neighborhood and stuff. And I was really lucky that I had probably like a solid six that, like, at any given moment you walk outside and there was a basketball game, there's a football game, there's a baseball game. Like, I got so lucky. And that is like, we always had this thing of like, what sport is it? And people ask me all the time, like, how did you decide which sport you wanted to play and when you wanted to play them? And it was like simple. Whatever was on TV is what we played. So if it was basketball season, we're just shooting hoops. It was baseball season, we hit, the lady's name was Dorothy. We used to hit her garage every single time with like this tennis ball, especially if we got waterlogged. But anyways, so the passions and interests were just sports, man, because it was a way for me to get, I think, a lot of my extra energy burned off. And then two, I felt like in life, I had so many like boxes. This is how you have to do the homework. This is how you have to clean your room. This is how you have to do this. This is how, sports was, you got one rule, you know, the person who gets past this line, touchdown. You can do it however you want to. Just stay inside these rules. The person who hits it over the fence, it doesn't matter if you're left, right, you could throw it for all we care. Same thing with basketball. You can dribble all the way around. And so I felt because there was no rules, that it was a lot more freedom. And so I
Mm.
like that feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you feel like, or do you feel like you accomplished everything that you wanted to with your playing career?
I think the natural answer is no, right? Every competitor, you're ever since you were a kid, like never be satisfied, never be content, always strive for more. Yeah, you had 10 tackles, but you could have had 12, right? You
Mm.
batted, you had 2 hits, but you could have had three. So I think the natural competitor inside of me says no. I think the realist inside of me says, yeah. I mean, at 12 years old, my teacher at a parent teacher conference told my mom that by the time I was 16, that I was going to be a leader of a gang, shot, stabbed, and killed. Like, and I'll never forget like her face and her expression. And so at 16, I basically, my fate had already been set before me for at 16 years old. This is what your life's going to turn out and be. And so I made it. Not only did I make it past 16, I graduated high school with a 3.4 GPA. I graduated from one of the best universities, in the country, going to USC for free. Won 2 national championships. I got drafted. I would say that like the odds and where I was started and how it was supposed to turn out, what it's supposed to, I think I got all that I could and more. And then on top of that, like I started 10 games. I got drafted 155th overall, started 10 games, and there's people who start 12, 13 games in a season and no way get drafted. Like,
Hmm.
um, yeah, man, I made a couple of dollars. I call my NFL experience a 5-year paid vacation. I went to so many different teams, met so many different players. Played with some of the best players in college and in the NFL during those times. And some can argue like ever. Like I did it. I was with that. I was with the group, man. And I can say without a shadow of a doubt, every time I see people who I played against or with, like, that respect nod, and it, right? Like when they might not know your name, they might not have bought your shoe, you might not be on a Wheaties box, but the guys who you played with and your competitors that you played with, like when you walk into a room or when you talk to them on the phone or when you see them out and about, they go, "Oh man, like you brought it." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's all you need. That's all you need.
It's wild that um, you're my second interview for this upcoming season, and the one of my former teammates that played in the NFL, same amount of time as you, kind of similar story,
Mm,
similar lines of trajectory. And that was the big thing for him as well. Was I might not have been a Pro Bowler, I might not have made the Hall of Fame, but I got Hall of Famers respect in the locker
yeah,
room. And to us, that means so much to be able to look at someone. Like I remember, in college, one of my teammates was Jason Pierre-Paul, who's,
yeah,
a absolute beast on the
yeah,
field. And just being able to say, like, having a guy like that's respect is, at that point, it's like, okay, cool. Like I can hang the cleats up. Like
yeah, yeah,
I did
yeah,
it.
yeah. It's so funny you say that, man. I was still kicking around the whole like trying out for teams, and this was when I was in the NFL, and I would get released and I'd come home for a couple weeks, and then you just get on the train, like you just kind of get flown to different cities and different states, and you're working out to hopefully make the team. And I was talking to one of my buddies, Joe Ford, and he's like, "Hey man, any teams call you?" He'd call me like once a week just to check in on me. And it's funny, I've never even mentioned the story, but like he's like, "Any teams call you?" And I was like, "No, not this week." And he's like, "Man, who cares if they call you? You made it." And I was like, and I'm 4 years in at this time, and I was like, "You're right. I made it." Like,
I did it.
I did it. Like, because you're so involved in it. You're so wrapped up in it, and that I never took a time to think that I had done anything. I was still kind of with the mindset of like, I have to earn that. I have to get there. I have to get there. And like him telling me that took a lot of pressure. And to be honest with you, I think that was like the year that like I went out and balled, like when I was in Carolina my last year.
That's awesome. I know I read in your book, you mentioned that you were roommates with a guy named Reggie Bush. I don't know if a lot of
Yeah,
the listeners have heard of him, but you mentioned in the book that there was something that struck you about him and about the way he handled his business. And I think it's important for young athletes to hear this. This was when you look at Reggie Bush, I remember watching his highlights and stuff like that. Not to get too far off the subject of
of
Thomas
course,
Williams or anything, but I think this plays a lot into your story.
for sure.
When you watch Reggie and you watch him play, you think off the top of your head, like, man, this guy's just God given, just natural talent. He just walks into the gym, kicks ass. He steps on the football field, and they pretty much just anointed him the king at USC. And now
Right,
go score all these touchdowns, whatever you want to do.
right.
But in your experience in the book, it was way different than that. And
Yeah.
share a little bit of that.
Yeah, it's really cool because everybody sees him now and like have seen his stardom, but like we came in the same class at 18 years old, we roomed up, and one of the first nights I remember, like everybody gets a playbook, you go to college, and so we're this is twin beds, right? He's on one side of the room, I'm on the other side. We just moved in, and tomorrow's like the first day of camp, and like we're studying the playbook. And I remember thinking to myself, like X's and O's and overfronts and underfronts and Sam blitzes and Mike blitzes. What is all of this stuff? In high school, it was like, Thomas, whatever you think you got to do out there, just do that and do it really well. And so I was like,
Feel
all
it.
right, if I want to blitz, if I want to drop, whatever. And so I just closed my book and I was just like, man, this sucks. Like, let's watch TV, or like, I don't know, let's go find some girls. I don't know. I guess first day of college. And he was studying, and I was like, do you understand this stuff? And he goes, nope. And I was like, cool. So like, let's close the book. He was like, well, no, I'm not going to close the book because I don't understand it. And I'm not going to close it until I understand it. And like, that just put like this imprint in my brain of like who Reggie was, right? And he wins a Heisman Trophy, wins a Super Bowl, you know, number 2 pick, and has done tremendous things like in the game, in the sport of football. But what a lot of people don't understand is that every single time that the offensive players, or I should say the smaller players like the running backs, the wide receivers, would get the opportunity to work with the offensive linemen, with the bigger players, Reggie was constantly in the back room. We called it the front room for the little guys, the back room for the big guys. And so he would be back there lifting weights with the offensive linemen, with the defensive linemen, with the linebackers, doing weight. I mean, like I think Reggie did like 400 and like, you know, 60 pounds one time, as you know, on the bench, just something stupid for a guy who weighs 185 pounds. But what I learned from watching him is that, one, he got tremendous amount of respect from everybody. Like, wow, he's back here doing our work. He's not one of those, you know, prima donnas who are just like want things handed to him. And you know, another story is that he was like fresh out of surgery. He had to get his knee cleaned up or something like that, maybe like our sophomore year. And as soon as he got cleared, like he came out, I'll never forget, he came out of the tunnel onto the practice field where we would do our sprints at 6 a.m. workouts. And he had a weight vest on. Nobody else had a weight vest on. And like you watch and you're thinking, like, who's this guy going to show off for? Nobody. Why is he making me feel bad? Why now? The coach didn't say, you know, Mr. Show Off, and it had nothing to do with us. He never said anything like, hey, you need to wear a weight vest like me. Hey guys, look at me. Hey guys, he literally came out there and he wanted to work. And so I think one of the things that a lot of us as his teammates learned is that God can give you a certain amount of talent, but it's your job to add to that with your will, determination, and your effort. And so, you know, a lot of people ask, you know, what's the difference between college and the NFL? And what I say is that in the NFL, there's a lot of really good players. Like everybody is a really good player, everybody. And then you have those really good players times the really good players. And that's where you get the Hall of Famers. And that's like, okay, God kind of ran you through the football factory twice. He ran me through it once. He ran you guys through it twice. And you work tremendously hard. And so, you know, there's a lot of guys who at the college level, we've all seen, it's like they're gifted by God and they lack the mental fortitude and the tenacity and the perseverance and the effort. And then you get those guys who like just don't have any, it's like the Rudy syndrome, don't have any athletic ability, but like they just keep coming back and back and back and grinding it out. But those special players, you know, kind of take the Rudy mentality with the God-given talent, and then they stir it up in a pot of gumbo, and it just comes out tasting so good. And that's what you get when you get a guy like Reggie.
That's insanely impressive. And I know, having been a former high school coach myself, I feel like just hearing that story, I know, you know, I got some former players listening to this show, hearing that about a guy of that stature and someone that you had personal access to. I feel like that's, I mean, it's such a beautiful thing to hear as a former coach, because it's like, we've been telling you guys this constantly. Like we've been telling you, we live this stuff. I played college football. I understand what great looks like, but until you hear it from someone, you know, a star, or, you know, something like that, it doesn't really click. But that was one of the stories in your book I really appreciated. Another one, and I don't want to give away too much about this book. I feel like honest to God, I think I wrote this in the review that I left. I think it should be required reading for at least college football players. And the reason I say that is because it's like a compilation of all of the things that could and are probably going to happen to you throughout college. And then on the back end, how do you relate these experiences to success in being great in life after the game, the conversation that this whole podcast is about. So with that being said, one of the other tricks, being a former coach myself, one of the things one of the stories in your book that I loved was, I don't know if it was a planted seed, but you still there? Can you hear me? One of the things that I liked a lot was the rumor, and I don't know if it was a planted rumor or if it was just something that naturally occurred, about going to the X Games or something like that. And then all of a sudden, and you could obviously tell the story a lot better than I could, but
Yeah.
that story for me was like, it was something that I've obviously, you know, an athlete of any level has experienced. So if you would be so
Oh
kind
my
to
gosh,
share
man.
that one, that
Yeah,
really, that
Jeff.
hit me.
You just took me back, man. And it was almost like the same feeling that I had that day when I found out about it. Like I really relived it. So again, go back. I don't think they can do it anymore, like the back-to-back double days in
No.
college football, right?
Mm-mm.
And so I think we were like the last era, last classes to be able to do
I
stuff
think
like
I had
that.
2 years of it. Yeah, I had two
Okay,
years, and then by my end of my career, it was done.
it was done, right? So shout out to the OGs who paved the ways. Can you believe they did 3-a-days? When I came in, Matt Grudegood would tell us about the old coach who would do 3-a-days, and I'm thinking to myself, no way, that's sickening.
That makes my spine hurt.
For real, man. And it's just like putting on those soggy pads between practices, and you're just like, this is disgusting. So we have a double day practice scheduled. And so we practice in the morning, you come in, you take a nap, you ice up, you get some food, you rest, you do all of these things to try to, get the motor going for the evening practice. And so there had started a rumor, and if I really remember this correctly, it was I don't even remember. Actually, I can't tell you who started it. It was just kind of like the game of telephone. So we're finding out like, hey, we're going to the X Games. So living, downtown LA, or close to downtown LA on campus at USC, you're like 6 minutes away. The X Games was every single year downtown. You got the skateboards, you got the motocross, you got all of this stuff. And like it's has anybody ever done practice when the coach says, hey, we're going to run to the pool instead of do practice? Like, it doesn't matter. Just tell me I don't have to run into 300-pound large human beings for the next 3 hours, and I will do anything. You could tell me we're going to go to like watch a play or something. I don't know, watch paint dry. And we would rather do that. So we I don't put on my tape. I don't tape my wrists. I don't tape my ankles. I barely even like lock up my shoulder pads, because we're going to go out to practice, and then Coach Carroll's going to blow the horn. He's going to be like, just kidding, everybody get on the buses, we're going to go downtown. And so I remember on my way out of the locker room getting ready to hit the field, I walked by one of, like, I believe is like one of the epitomes of college football, a guy by the name of Kerry Colbert, who's the USC wide receivers coach, played in the NFL several years, just epitomizes pro. And so Kerry's in his senior year, and I'm excited, and I look at him like a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed freshman, and I go, like, what are you doing? Because he was just locking up his shoulder pads, taping his wrists, putting his helmet on, like he was going to practice. And I was like, I don't know if you got the memo, but we're not going to practice today. And he just, like, without even blinking, without even gasping for air, almost like he was a machine in RoboCop, he was just said, I don't know what the rest of you guys are doing, but I'm getting ready for practice. And we go out to the practice field, and I'm like, shoes aren't even tied, wobbly ankles, no wrist tape. Like, I'm in my mind thinking to myself, how fast can I get in here, shower, get my outfit on, and get downtown? Coach Carroll, after stretch, they're like, he's going to do it after stretch. He's going to get us to think he's going to think us that we're going to have to practice, and we're going to do this, but he's going to get us to do it after stretch. So sure enough, after stretch, he blows up a whistle, and everyone's like, see, told you. Yep, here it comes. Hey guys, I know there's a rumor going around that we're not going to practice, but I don't know what you guys need to do between now and then. You need to shake up your mindset, because we're definitely not going to X Games, and get your mind right. Get ready to practice. And everybody just was like, oh, and it was almost like you heard the air come out of the human beings who were excited, anticipating not having to practice. And I'll just never forget that, of like seeing Kerry Colbert, mind right, like, yeah, you guys, I don't know what you guys are getting ready to do, but I'm getting ready for practice. Now, it just taught me of, get your mind ready for what we're going to do. And if a surprise, or if there's a wrinkle in it, then that's fine. But never sit there and allow yourself to come out of your routine of what you should be getting ready to do.
Yeah, I felt like that was an amazing lesson that you learned. And it was definitely one that I had learned as well, with almost like an identical situation of, I can't even remember what the rumor was, but, and I don't even know if it was a rumor. I think someone had just mentioned like, hey, like because that has happened. I think on any team sport that happens sometimes, where it's like, oh, hey, like, let's hit the pool, like you
Coach
said.
throws you
And
a
then,
bone.
yeah, right. And it happens, and it's like, oh, it's a morale thing. They like really love us. Like, and then you get out there and you have your tape on. And it's like, damn, like, for anyone that's ever played football before, you go through that ritual. Like, you get taped up. I mean, I had my ankles taped. I had to have a knee brace on. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
going out there and thinking of playing without that stuff is like I'm completely exposed. Like,
I'm
as
not
crazy as
ready.
that may
I'm not
sound,
prepared.
right? Yeah. So with you, you mentioned that you had the neck injury. What specifically happened with that? Because I've read some things and wanted to hear from you.
Yeah, so I got bulging discs, like four. I have like four bulging discs. I have spinal stenosis. I have um, like where the disc where there's no separation between a couple of the discs. It's jacked. Basically, I've been in a whole bunch of car accidents. If you look at me on an MRI, and so 2011, like I said, we were playing against the Minnesota Vikings, and it was a play where I was supposed to have the tight end and the inside linebacker was supposed to have the running back. And so any offensive minds out there understand that if you can put the defense, especially in man coverage in a compromising situation, like putting the running back and the tight end on the same side, then you can cause confusion. So before the play, me and the other linebacker said, all right, so we're going to pass it, which means that if that running back flares to the sideline, then I'm going to take the running back who was his man, and then he's going to take the tight end, which was my man. So the running back did that. So I thought he was going to say push, which means we're going to push one man over. Man, when I tell you the quarterback looks up and throws to a wide open tight end, and I look to my right, it was my linebacker who we both decided we were going to push.
Mm,
And he throws to a wide open tight end running scot-free down the field. I don't think I've ever ran that fast and that hard ever, because you're on national TV and there's a lot of people, and the announcers are going to come right back to you and saying, well, that's his man.
mm,
So I run over there as fast as I can, and right before I get to him, the tight end ducks his head, and I run full speed into the cornerback. And so the cornerback and I hit heads, my neck
mm,
snapped back, and I laid on the field for about 2 minutes where I couldn't feel any of the extremities, and I couldn't like move. I couldn't feel tingling. I couldn't feel anything. And the first thing that I thought of was my mom, who just so happened to be watching that day. And like we always had this pact where if you lay down on the field and you can't move, at least like move your hands,
mm,
kick your feet, like thumbs up, do something so I know you're good. And so my mom was on the other side of the country at the time, and I couldn't for like 2 minutes, and they went to a commercial break. I still couldn't move. Like the trainers came over, and then finally, I started to get feeling and sensation back in my in my upper extremities, and then finally to lower extremities. We were able to walk off. But yeah, I went on injured reserve
mm.
for the rest of the year, which means that your season's over. And I was at that 4 year mark. And so I was supposed to renegotiate and re-sign a contract. Well, not re-sign, but my contract was up. So hopefully we're going to get an extension, or go to another team. And it never happened. And that's when my transition started.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a lot of the research that I've done, a lot of the questions about retirement kind of fall into the voluntary or involuntary retirement, and mine, I mean, it was like half voluntary, half involuntary. Cause at that point, I'm like working on 3 knee surgeries. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, do I really, the same exact thought came across my head that came across your head is, hey, am I going to be able to play with my kids one day?
Yeah.
So now it's like, I know I made the right decision. There's no regret. But with yours, it seems like if, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like if you hadn't have had that injury, you were still planning on playing for several years after that. What was that? If you feel obligated to talk about it, what was that feeling like of kind of the realization that, making this choice is probably the best way to go, even though I don't want to do it?
Yeah. So I tried to come back the next year, and then that's when I signed a 1 year deal with Tampa, and I lied to them going through my process. Like I told them a lie. Like they're like, "Hey, we saw you on injured reserve. What was it?" And like I just kind of I wanted to play. I never wanted to be in a position where a coach could tell me if I could or couldn't play. Like I'll let you know if I can go. And with all the concussion stuff, they'd have you take these tests, and like the test says you can't play or the test says you can. And so I just never wanted to be in that situation. So coming back to Tampa, I fibbed and I got my way on the team, and we're out there at the first day of practice, and I do it again. And at that time it was like that's when I heard God whisper into my soul, like, you're finished. Because I was always curious of how will I know when I'm supposed to be done? Two questions that I got answered, but I never knew how I would get answered is, who am I supposed to marry? I got that answer. And how will you know you're done playing ball? And I got that answer. Same source, same person, and whispered to me in the same voice. And so that day I was like, I'm finished. And so I went in, talked to the trainers, and I was like, hey, I'm done. They're like, wait, what? Usually we're the team. We tell you when you're done. And I was like, no, 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 I'm done. They're like, well, do you want to sleep on it? Come talk to us in the morning. I was like, no, the only thing I want to sleep on today is a warm bed and send me home in the morning.
Mm.
And I walked through the hotel hallway, transporting my stuff. Jeff, I tell you, like, it happens quickly. Is like they uprooted me from my room with my then teammate on the team. They uprooted me. You have 30 minutes to get your stuff. You're going to get shipped to the opposite side of the hotel. So now you went from current player to former player. Like, you're now you're a civilian. Now you're a fan. Now you're one of them. Like, so get as far as you possibly can away from us. And
Mm.
so when they told me that, man, I just remember thinking to myself of like, I put all of everything I had on the line for this. I put my life on the line for this, and this is what I get. And I remember tweeting at the time, and it was like, I'd never been an emotional poster, but I think at this time, I wanted the world to feel me. I wanted to be heard.
Yeah.
And I tweeted, it was a Kanye West line of like, I used to want this. I think it was Drake and Kanye. I think it was like, I used to want this thing forever. Y'all could have it back,
Mm.
because I wanted it so bad. But like, this is how you're gonna treat me. Oh, you guys can have all this back. I'm good, because I would rather take the rest of my life than a few more years of my life. And then obviously, as we know, all the head stuff, the concussions, all the mental health stuff just started to be compared to football. And I was like, let me get out while I can, as opposed to like, you guys are wheeling me out.
Yeah. Who was the first person in your circle that you told that you were done, that you were going to retire?
Man, the first person was my mom, and my mom was like, "Are you sure?" Almost like she was like, "Nah, you're not finished. Keep on going." Because my mom raised me tough. Like,
Yeah.
"Nah, we're not quitting. We don't quit. Did you put your name down on the piece of paper? You finish it. Is that what you want? Is that what you told them you're going to be there for this long? That's what you do." And so my mom was like, do you want a doctor's? And I was like, Mom, you're not hearing me. I'm finished. Because right
Mm.
before that, I put on a piece of paper, I just did it old school style, like pros and cons. What's the pros of keep playing? What's the cons? And pros, like, I stopped after I put money. I was like, the pros is money. I was due to make, $750,000, which is great. And then I didn't have any other that. Like, I didn't want to be a pro bowler. I didn't want to win a Super Bowl. I didn't like, that was it. And then I went down the con, and the cons had like not being able to walk, like, punch drunk, like, just there were so many different things, like body hurt. I'm not going to be able to hang out with my family for Christmas. It was just so many. And I was like, as soon as I was only playing this game for money, like, it's time to go.
Mm.
And so I called my mom, I talked to my agent, and then I called my dad. And I know I talked at the very beginning of this saying that my dad and I didn't have a great relationship when I was coming up. And my father wasn't there when I wanted him to be, but he was there when I needed him to be. And I'm in the hotel. I'm in the new hotel room in Tampa that they put me in, and I ordered like a double bacon sandwich with avocado barbecue sauce, man. And I don't condone this, but like, I had a nice beer, because I think beers and burgers are nice. So I had a nice beer, man. And I called my dad, and I was afraid to tell him because I still needed. So for me, football represented my father, like I explained. And so I still needed affirmation of like, I don't want to tell him, because if I tell him, then I'm not affirmed. It was just a weird mental thing. And I
Mm.
remember when I told him, I said, Dad, I'm done. And he was like, your words are going to be more impactful and powerful than any hit you had on the football field. And this is 2012. And like, fast forward to 2021, I'm a two-time author, public speaker, and adjunct professor. Like, that's my space. And so for him to say that, he affirmed me of like, you don't need football. Football was just your platform to get you to be able to do what you were created to do. And once he told me that, man, I felt like this giant weight that was lifted off my shoulders, and the ability to move forward with life and saying, okay, now you can do what you were created to do, not just what you love to do, what you were created to do.
So, did you have, or before I get to that question, I always like to touch on this one a little bit. How much of your I guess, self identity and confidence were wrapped up in being an athlete? All of it, like mine?
Man, all of it. As soon as you
120%.
Man, you tell me, you ask me about myself, I'm gonna tell you what team I played for, my stats, my 40, my vertical, like what number. I'm gonna tell you all that, right? But if you ask me about me, Thomas Williams, at that time, I couldn't tell you anything. Like when I was, I'll never forget, I'll never forget, like I went on this date before I was engaged and before I found the love of my life. But I was on this date in this, it was like fresh right after I got done playing. And this girl asked me, like, what do you like to do for fun? And I literally fumbled because it was like, I told her, like, I like to work out. And then I started like saying, I like to watch film. I like to study my opponent. And it was like, dude, you don't play anymore. Like, you're weird. I didn't have any passions outside. I never traveled. I didn't enjoy, different types of foods, like, just picking a place on the map and saying, hey, I want to drive or fly there and explore. Like, I didn't have an identity. I didn't have passions or enjoyments outside of ball. And so for me, 100% of my identity was me. I'm Thomas the football player. Like, acknowledge me and address me as Thomas the football player. And even though so many times I was extremely proud to admit that I'm more than an athlete, deep down inside, like I really wasn't.
Mm. I think that's something a lot of people that play sports at a high level can probably commit to, could probably relate to. Uh, Sometimes I think about these guys like the Tom Brady's and the Peyton Mannings and the Aaron Rodgers, and everyone's like, oh, like they got $100 million sitting in the bank. Like they're going to walk out of this thing like a kingpin, like no big deal, no worries. But what they don't realize is there's a mental game to this whole thing, to the whole life game. So you've committed so much and had so much success in this one thing. Like I think I heard or read an article that Jay Cutler's struggling with some of the things going on as far as like, finding himself outside of football. For you, did you have a plan for retirement? I know you mentioned that you're an accomplished author, business owner, adjunct professor. Did you plan on that being the road, or how did you come to that?
No, I got lucky, Jeff. So about a month before I got done playing, I met two individuals, Scott and Kelly, who have helped me tremendously with one transitioning, two finding value outside of sports, and three developing business acumen and understanding, P&Ls, and different corporations and investments and things of that nature. So I got lucky. I literally met them a month before and then talked to them 5 days after I got done playing. I would have been extremely lost in a lot more darker of a situation than I was had it not been for those individuals. Because I didn't have a plan. I mean, I messed around and did things like throughout the off season. Like I tried, broadcasting. I tried modeling. I try, so I wanted to do the movie thing, and so I had a whole bunch of things that kind of like I thought I wanted to do, but I didn't have anything that stuck. The reason why elite athletes are who they are is because they're addicted to it. They
Mm.
are obsessed with doing the speed ladder, running the same route, doing the same drill, catching the same ball, waking up at the same time, taping this ankle first. Like there is an obsession that we have. And so how do you get that obsession? Not by trying being really good at basketball, really good at football, really good at baseball, really good at, underwater basket weaving, like in like painting on the weekends. Like we don't get good at our sport by doing that. We get good because we have this really innate knack to become obsessed with something, right? And I was obsessed with it. And I think if I hadn't had people show me to take that obsessive compulsive disorder into a new lane, in a healthy lane, then I would have been stuck trying to do a whole bunch of things like we see a lot of athletes or people who have had a tremendous amount of success at a young age and they have a lot of money. What a lot of money allows them to do is bypass a lot of time. And so it's like they'll get attached to certain things. I'm in horse racing and it's like, what do you know about horse racing? The Kentucky Derby. That's the only thing you know. Oh, well, now I'm into owning casinos and like I'm into all of these things. And I just got a great piece of advice from my college coach at the time. He's like, when you're done playing, promise me you'll grow in what you know. I was like, so you're telling me I can only do football or I can only do personal training? And it's like, no, no, grow in what you know. So again, being an adjunct professor is I help freshman football players transition to college at USC. Like
Mm,
I've mastered that. I've mastered my own personal transition. Another part of my business is helping athletes transition out of sports. I've mastered that. Like I've sat on my couch for weeks on end, um, drinking beers and watching highlight tapes. Like I've done that. Like I physically, like for real, have done that. It wasn't like, oh, I woke up the next day and I stopped playing and you know what? I just had this aha Einstein moment. Like, no, I sat there and gave myself space to sit there and crack open a beer at 10:30 in the morning after I got done working out. And I said, for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to watch every single game I played in from high school to pro, and I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to be a fan. I'm going to do my own tailgating. Like, I'm not telling anybody to do this on your podcast. I'm just saying what I did, right? Like,
right.
but why can I talk about it? Why can I teach? Why can I help people? Because I had to vent through that whole entire process, like
Mm,
feeling lowest of the lows, even though I was at less than 1% of the world. Like I've gone through that. And so, my coach gave me a great piece of advice, grow in what you know. And so, helping people get to their Super Bowl because I've gotten to mine, is another part of the business. But, going back to your initial question is I didn't. I didn't, and thank God I had some people who surrounded me and said, "Hey, we will love you, we will support you, and we will help you get through this." And then the whole thing about becoming obsessed with something, the same way you were with sports, was tremendous valuable for me, especially since it was a healthy obsession and it wasn't one of those things that took me down a dark path.
hmm So, if you could give a young athlete some advice on being an entrepreneur, or say you could grab, and obviously this is a something of great time in your life currently. It's something you commit your entire professional life to. It sounds like. What's something that an 18-year-old kid can do to prepare themselves for a life of being an entrepreneur after football?
Yep. A great piece of advice I got from Ronnie Lott going into the NFL. He says, remain a rookie. And remain a rookie means, if you're a freshman and you're playing varsity and there's that top varsity player on your team and you like the way that they play a certain play or run a certain route, throw a certain kind of pass, whatever it is, you're asking them questions. Hey man, what did you see on that play? How did you know whether to go left or go right? What made you go forward instead of step back? How did you know it was pass and not run? You ask those questions. Now, the same thing you'll do when you go to college. You'll ask the upperclassmen or you'll ask your coach, hey, coach, I'm having difficulties on, when is it a toss versus when is it a counter play or how to hit a fastball as opposed to a slider. Um, and the same thing in the NFL or whatever your sport is as far as professionally, the same thing you need to do when you get out of sports and you start to become an entrepreneur. You have to ask questions to the people who are doing very well in that space. In that industry, there's a reason why they're doing great. I'll give you a perfect example. Had a conversation with one of my friends who kills it with the personal development space. Like she's just phenomenal, helps people, coaches clients, and etc. Like I just asked her, I said, how much do you charge people to consult with them for an hour? I have my price. And I'll tell you what, her price was about 3 times mine. And she said it without a blink of an eye. And I was like, and she goes, oh yeah, yeah. And sometimes I do 2 people at a time so that I can, one, I can help them, but also two, like my time is valuable. And I was like, wow, I need to value myself a little bit more to increase my price.
Mm,
But the only reason I was able to get that information from her is because I was a rookie. In that situation, I was a rookie, and I asked, how are you in Tulum when you're taking this call? How are you in Mexico? How are you overseas? How are you over here? Like, why are you not home? Like, oh, because oh, all right, great. Now, the same way I did when I went to Jacksonville and played, linebacker and studied, um, Mike Peterson, who went to University of Florida, played in Jacksonville, had a successful NFL career. How do you know the difference between a run and a pass? Because he would always call bird and rabbit, and he was like 99% right. How do you know it's a pass, bird? How do you know rabbit? It's a run. And he would just tell me the little things of like, oh, you see the tight end? Like he's up there looking at the secondary. He's looking at the coverage. Oh, you see the
mm,
quarterback? Like, you see the wide receivers, like they're not grabbing their towel when they break the huddle. Like, so there was just different nuances that I just took myself and I said, okay, now I got to ask, how did you do that? But so many times in sports, we have this ego and we don't want to appear to be the dumb jock or we don't want to be the one who's inadequate. We've always heard, weakest link in the chain, breaks the fence type thing. And so we don't want to ever be the weakest link. But for me, man, I actually want to be the weakest link, and I want to learn, and I want to grow, and I want to keep asking people, how.
It's
Because
amazing. I'm sorry. I
no,
was gonna
no, no, no,
say
no.
it's amazing the like perceived barriers that we have as young athletes and as young men. I mean, regardless of if you played sports or not, to feeling like there's like you said, there's that ego barrier to asking someone above you a question. And it's like, if you had Michael Jordan in the gym with you, you're not going to ask him how he did that fadeaway. You know what I'm
Right,
saying? Like,
right,
if regardless of what level you are in your life, like if you keep that beginner's mindset, that rookie's mindset, it allows you to continuously build and grow. And I know a lot of professional people like to kind of use these like ping words, but having a growth mindset is
right.
something that you hear a lot of nowadays. And I think that's super, super important. And I think, having this discussion with you and you being able to reiterate that is so huge, something that's really, really helped me in my life, because I've had, I went from being never having any professional experience at all outside of teaching and coaching football to now, professional training and development. I do technical stuff. I didn't even know how to barely use a computer, Thomas. I barely even knew. And now it's like I have my like a podcast that I put together, and it's just because of being curious and constantly, being able to humble yourself. One of the most important pieces of advice, I forgot where I read it or heard it. I think it had something to do with it was a book about stoicism,
Mm,
being a stoic, but it was about like crushing your ego, like just totally
yeah,
dissolve your ego and allow yourself to grow. And that's, for me, ego is such an impediment, especially with young athletes and young men. If you can get over that, if you can get through that and realize what your ego is, I feel like, man, it's hard, but the path to success is there. Like
yeah,
it's there. Just open your
yeah.
mouth and ask questions, man.
So true. That's so good, man. I would love to know what when you get that book, man. Shoot me a message and let me know what that book is. I've been studying Ryan Holiday recently, and
Yeah.
so like he's really big into that. So I would appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't mind, because I'm about to wrap this thing up, I know you got valuable time. I think I got two more questions for you. I know we were talking before we came on air, the book, and for the life of me, I've been hitting the head so many times, Thomas. Could you pick the book up and show? Because this is just getting in a video. What's
So
the
this
title?
the relentless pursuit of greatness. This is my second book. I don't have my other book. My other book is Permission to Dream. And so Permission to Dream was written first for middle school and high school kids to understand, how do you identify your passions? Like, how do you identify where you should kind of like spend a lot of your aim, and go for it, and obviously there's some obstacles that you should expect to incur. And then the relentless pursuit of greatness, which is this book right here. This book is a playbook for high school, college, and professional athletes, how to prepare for the transition while you're still playing. Because a wise man once says, the best time to look for another job is while you have your current job. And so I think
Mm,
for us, if you come in as a freshman in college, or you're a rookie in professional sports, that you have a time clock, and you know that eventually you're gonna be done. And so, how do you maximize, the brand of your university or your professional sports team? And then also, what are some of your transferable skills that maybe you might not know about or be aware about, but that will help you, Jeff, like you were talking about mentioning before, that will make you successful in life. Because one of the things that, listening to you talk, and then also having the mindset of kind of trying to break this curse of, we expect greatness while we play our sport, but we accept mediocrity while we're
mm.
when we're done. And I think that's one of the things that we're in alignment with, of like bringing awareness and also the competitive advantage and edge to the former athlete,
Mm.
because they still have it in them. We just have to make sure that we remind them of what they've accomplished, and not who they were, but who they are. They just forgot it. And so those are some of the things that I'm definitely on a mission to kind of, I guess, cure, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell you what, to all to the young athletes that might be making their transition out of the game right now, there is a special feeling when you get, and I don't know if I mean, obviously being a professor and all, you probably spend a little bit of time in the office with colleagues and such, but there is a tremendous feeling when you get into an office environment and everyone's working, and then you find out that, okay, this guy such and such is considered the hard worker on the team, and then you just mow him down
Yeah.
every day. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, like people now, I'm seeing firsthand the transferable skills that I got from playing football and that discipline that was required from it. I'm burning it up now. Now that
Oh,
I heard this quote, and I don't know if you listen, and probably people are going to roll their eyes right now, but I heard it recently on a Joe Rogan podcast,
okay.
and he was interviewing, can't remember the guy's name, but he's a gold medal wrestler, big
Mm,
name. Um, he said, once you see the way, you see it in all things, if that
mm,
makes sense. And
yep.
what he essentially meant by that was, and it was a quote by Miyamoto Musashi of the Five Rings, that book, but it was, once you
Mm,
see the way, once you understand the way to success, you see it in all things. And I felt like I really found that with that first office gig, man. I knew it. I was like, man, these guys can't outwork me. They just can't, like, because I'm willing to dig so deep to
yeah.
be successful now that it's like I can't be denied. And
I can't. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so good. It reminds me of, when you literally have conversations with people and it's like they tell you kind of like what their limit is, like, wow, that's the limit. And then you replay it in your brain and you're like, that's it. One of the things is that we talk to people and we tell them, as athletes, you've been able to take your body where only most people can take their mind.
mm,
Like, there's no way. So imagine where your mind can go. If people's mind can go further than the body, but you've been able to do with your body what most people, like, wait, you ran 110s with 45 seconds break, and you're like, yeah, like I just did it. I got tired on the last three. And so now you being able to understand that, just like you admit and that you experience, is that, oh, this is not going to be easy. I just have to take my mind to that same place. And we got it in us. We've proven it to ourselves. It's just it's unfortunate that a lot of times people forget which made them great. And that's why I think that, we're greater than our jersey. That, some people think that the jersey made them great, but there's another person who's going to wear your number next year. There's another person who wore your number 5 years ago. So it's you that moved the jersey. It's not the jersey that moves you.
right. Yeah, it's funny you say that. The guy that wore 89 after me ended up playing in the NFL. I was like, damn. I got forgot about just like that.
It happens to us all, my friend. It happens to us all.
Yeah. The guy that wore 89 before me was better than me too. I was like, I can't catch a damn break, man.
The
But
curse of the 8-9.
yeah. So the last question I love to ask everyone, and it's kind of a little bit on the deeper side, is if you could go back and talk to your 16 or 18-year-old self before you ever played for the Trojans, before any of the NFL stuff, what advice would you give that young man? What advice would you give that person?
Oh,
That's a tough one.
no, man, because it's like I just stepped into fatherhood a few months ago. So like part of this is like, what would I tell my daughter?
Mm,
Right.
okay.
So I think it would be right before you're getting ready to quit. Imagine what your kids would say about you.
Hmm.
Imagine. So if you're getting ready to quit school and you want to tell your kids, hey, you got to go to school, they're going to go, Mom, Dad, you quit. If you want to tell your son or your daughter, or if you want to quit, your sport, you're going to quit. Coach isn't playing me, not getting as much playing time. We're not winning. This sucks. Keep getting injured. You're gonna have to face your kid in the mirror, and there's gonna come a time where they're gonna sit there and be like, "Dad, Mom, what did you do?" And you got to tell them the truth. You're either gonna lie to them and say, "Oh, I kept pushing, I kept going, I kept grinding it out," or you're gonna tell them, "I quit." And they're gonna look at you and they're gonna slap you in the face with that finger and say, "Well, then you don't have anything to tell me."
Mm.
So that is what I would tell my younger self.
What a crazy thought, man. What a beautiful way to end this thing. So As we kind of wrap up, is there any new projects we should be on the lookout for with Thomas Williams? You got any more books coming out? Anything going on?
Man, I think I got a couple more books in me, but what I'm excited about this year, man, I have a goal to get on 52 podcasts. At the end of the year,
Every
I
week.
want to be on 52 podcasts. I want to, because obviously everything with the pandemic is being shut down, where I would try to get 52 speaking engagements a year. Last year obviously didn't happen. And I think the same thing is probably going to happen again this year as far as for me and my business. So I'm going to count these podcasts as speaking engagements. I'm gonna prep
Mm,
for them. I'm gonna get ready. I'm gonna rock. I'm gonna roll, and I'm gonna deliver everything I got. And so the goal this year on the immediate future is to get it on the 52 podcasts. So by the end of the year, there's 52 places that we can collaborate, we can connect, and that we can inspire.
absolutely. I have a very similar goal. It's funny you say
Ooh,
that. My goal is to get 52 guests on this podcast. So
yeah.
I'm
Let's hold
I'm
each other
I'm on
accountable,
track.
man.
Hey, I'll hit you up, man.
I will. Yep.
You
Yep.
messed up, gave
Please.
me your email. Well, hey Thomas, I really appreciate it, man. And good luck with everything in the future. And again, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing some great wisdom with me and the guests.
No, Jeff, thank you so much, man. And I continue to commend you for everything that you're doing and helping people tell their story, but also encourage and inspire the ones, outside of the game, because we'll be human beings much longer than we ever were athletes.
Amen. Appreciate it, brother.
Thanks, man.
Have a good one.
You too.